To Total Health.
Hi, good afternoon, and welcome back to Total Health. Today in studio, we have Elena, Taneva, nurse practitioner, as well as two special guests, Stevie Merino, the executive director of Birth Workers of Color, and Gilayna Joy Santos, the program coordinator. Welcome, Elena. Welcome, Stevie, and welcome, Gilayna.
Hi, Rosie. Half a day, Guam. It is so exciting to be again back home. I have been missing for a whole month. I attempted to try to climb the highest peak in Argentina, in Americas, Aconcagua. I wasn't able to due to a very, very bad weather. But how amazing to come back on an island that the weather is always good. And, you know, every time I leave Guam and I come back, I'm just amazed how many amazing things are happening on our island. You know, we had a privilege, Rosie, to interview great people, great women trying to make a difference on our island. We had Jane Flores and Cynthia Cabot talking about human trafficking. We had the Vero victim associate advocates reaching out to others. And now we are going to explore further the great resources that we are offering in Guam. And those are the doula services. You know, for most of us that we don't know what doula is, we're going to learn all about it. But stay tuned because we have a great information, and I believe it will really be related to anybody that listens to that radio show, because all of us in some way, we are related to our families, we are related to someone giving a birth. So welcome Gilayna and welcome Stevie. I'm very excited that you took our invitation and you are here sharing with us a little bit more about the doula services offered in Guam. First of all, we didn't know that those services are offered, so please tell us more about you and tell us more about the organization you started.
Yeah, half a day. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. We are so honored and humbled to have gotten the invitation and to be able to share a little bit about our work. My name is Stevie Merino. My family is the Mesa family. And I live off island. I actually live in Long Beach, California, but I'm here often doing work, building out just our doula hub here and really trying to help reduce the overwhelming disparities that exist on island for moms and babies and families around health. Our organization, Birth Workers of Color Collective, it was started, we're almost at our 9-year anniversary.
Oh,
so
wow.
We've been doing this work for quite some time. And we really started with the idea of trying to use this term that we had heard, doula, which most of us, are very unfamiliar with. But as someone who has an anthropology background, I was doing research on birth and pregnancy traditions, and doulas are essentially a support service, that village that people love to talk about for new parents, new families, new moms. Doulas help to provide that. And so from an anthropology perspective, I was like, we've had this. Many of us have just lost it as a result of Western medicine and hospitals, which are really great tools. But how do we bring back some of that village that we talk so much about? And so with that, we've trained over 700 doulas across the globe in the almost 9 years that we've been doing this work.
Wow.
We've done a lot of advocacy just around health equity and really making sure that the support and services that people are getting are reflecting their own lived experiences. And so making sure that we are training Chukis doulas and Chamorro doulas and people who can speak in language or really just understand the cultural pieces that people really need, and also the fears that exist around accessing medical care and, maybe mistreatment or just a lack of understanding or accessible education. And so really trying to fill that gap and support, the providers and all the different people doing this really important work around maternal and infant care. And so over the last 3 years, we've trained 46 doulas on island. And we're really proud of that.
Wow. I'm very proud of you too.
Yes, thank you. And we hope to just train more and continue to advocate again against, all the overwhelming health disparities that exist and be one of the many tools and resources that are on island and that are growing on island as well. So that's a little bit of our history. We do a lot of different work on island. We're advocating for Medicaid to cover doulas and Guam Gov insurance, offering just a lot of things. But that's a little bit about us and just how our organization came to be. And I'll let Gilayna introduce herself as well.
Half a day, everyone. I'm Gilayna Santos. I am based here on Guam. I was part of the first cohort that Birth Workers of Color Collective trained on Guam in 2023. And I just started on as their Guam program coordinator. Well, not just, but mid last year.
Fantastic. Yeah. I did hear about the services, and I did hear very, very good, wonderful reports that I have been hearing from patients and others. And I'm very impressed by your desire to help Guam. You know, many of us can have our career and we can stay focused on that. But coming back to the island, trying to really merge those disparities, helping women on the island, you need to have more than a vision. You need to have a heart to do that.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they don't recognize that, yes, we are very passionate about it. We obviously want our doulas to be able to make this a career and that it's sustainable economically, but also just, for whatever vision that they have for their lives and their families and their future. But also we are really driven by the passion behind women and infant health. We see it across the states, across the island, just that there are so many preventable deaths and health issues that if there was a little bit more cultural education and accessibility, we can really prevent these things. Birth and pregnancy has been happening from a very long time. And so many of us are so disconnected from it and see it as this medical emergency now.
Correct.
And so how do we help to support the women and families on Guam and really everyone? Because most people, they know someone who's pregnant. They were birthed by someone. And so how do we make this an issue that everyone feels invested in and feels like it's their issue to really help tackle? And so the passion piece is one part. But also I think just as an organization, we just get stronger every year. And so in the 9 years that we've been doing this work, we've really built up the capacity and the ability and the understanding of, listening to the people who are in the communities. What are their needs? We don't act like we know. Mm-hmm. We always train doulas from those communities so that they're able to connect and say, like, this is what we want more of, or this is what is confusing, or this is what we need advocacy around. And then we really try to take their, follow their lead, essentially.
Yeah, doula's concept has been around since there is humanity. I know it comes from the ancient Greek, and somebody would say from Aristotle's time, that there is a woman dedicated, I think it's a woman, right?
Yes.
Most of the time it's a woman, dedicated to, the whole process of birthing, giving birth, postpartum care, perinatal care, what we will call it. And somehow you said in the past we had it, you will see in the Chamorro families, there will be always somebody in the family, maybe an older woman that she has been doing that for a while, also in Micronesia. But somehow that term got detached, and you said we put everything into the medical health professionals' hands, and we know how much we are struggling on the island, that we have limited resources, that we have few OBGYNs, and they're kind of so spread thin to help our women. And around the birthing process, there are so many things that are involved that I'm so glad we do have those doula services. But as I'm talking about it, tell us, what is a doula? Maybe many people don't know what exactly that entails.
Yeah, so, the doula is just the more modern term that has become normalized and popularized, at least in U.S. culture or Western culture. It's not the original term that most of us have in language, obviously. And And so I think that's important to name. Like whatever name people call it, there has been someone who has supported during pregnancy and birth and postpartum. And so a lot of people will tend to think, oh, that's not for me, or that's something that is for very specific type of people or people who want to birth out of the hospital or whatever it may be. And we like to really break that down because, you know, many of our doulas have supported people and do support people in different medical experiences around birth, or, you know, really just making sure that they're treated with dignity and respect in whatever their plan or ideas or thoughts are around pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. But a doula is a non-medical support person, essentially. And so we support with the emotional piece, with the educational piece, with the physical piece, and any other pieces that that particular individual might need, because doula work is very much catered towards the individual. So what I mean by that is, you know, I might have a client or someone who really just wants someone to listen to them. Like they're having a lot of struggles in their relationship or with their job or whatever it may be, and it's really impacting their pregnancy. And so as a doula, you know, I'm just really that space to like listen, to hold space for them and really provide that understanding. But from the emotional and the mental and the physical, we can help with labor support. So like pain management, comfort techniques. With the emotional, again, really helping the person who's giving birth, the woman who is giving birth, but also the support system, right? So like maybe they're getting suggestions or advice from someone very well-meaning who isn't giving them the best information, or maybe is giving them a lot of the trauma stories, which can create a lot of stress, right? And so really working with the entire family. And then for the mental and educational, it's really being one of the frontline first views at some of the things that they might be experiencing that maybe are a risk, right? So they might be swelling or having headaches, which can be a sign of a complication. Or they might be experiencing depression signs. And so being able to be that trusted person who can talk to them and give them trusted referrals that, you know, really relate to their lives and the cultural piece that might create some fears or taboos or stigma around it, like really helping talk to them through it. And again, be a part of that village that we talk so much about. So that's kind of what we do in a nutshell, but many of our doulas come with their own experiences and expertise. So, you know, we have some Chuukese doulas who are translators or who work as mental health providers or massage therapists or whatever it may be. And so you're also able to bring that into your doula work as well.
Thank you, Stevie, and thank you, Elena, and thank you, Gilayna. That's the music. We're going to go ahead and go to a quick break. Total Health Live will be right back after this short break. If you have a question, go ahead and call it in. Call us at 671-686-9999.
Imagine how the world would be if everyone considered giving to be as optional as, say, your next breath. Studies show that having a giving attitude, volunteering, praying, all of it improves mental and physical health. So we encourage you to think of us as a part of your healthy lifestyle. After all, at Joy FM, we bring you fresh air, living water, and a way to give. We're happy to help you practice good health when you pray for us or send in your gifts. It's not as optional as you think.
Si Joe Mossy, and thanks for listening to Total Health on Joy FM. We want to hear from you. Call in with your health-related questions at 472-1111 in Guam or in the Sinamai. The number to call is 323-1113. Text or WhatsApp us at 686-9999. And now, back to the show.
Hi, and welcome back to Total Health Live. If you're just tuning in today, we have our topic is about doulas. And I'm learning so much. You know, I didn't know that it was a service that is becoming much more widely available on island. And before this, I didn't really know what a doula was. Elena?
Yeah, I believe Stevie gave us a very, very detailed description of what doula services are. We know it's a non-medical professional that actually is doing everything but just the medical part, because the medical part is just a little portion of giving a birth. Being there mentally, making sure that we have all the vital, support. Vital signs are okay, medication-wise if it is needed. But there is so much going on when somebody decides to give a birth. And that's also related to, their mental preparation, their physical preparation, their emotional preparation of giving a birth. And many times, many mothers find themselves really being alone in that process. Maybe they're single moms, maybe they're not as well supported, maybe they're very young and they just don't know. They happen, to become pregnant. Now they have to face the reality, and there is no support out there. We as medical people, we spend 20 minutes with them. We kind of tell them what's the tendency, what they need to do, what they don't have to do. But the rest, it really takes a village to raise a child. And I'm so glad that you are providing those, services. So what is different between a midwife, let's say, and a doula?
That's a really important question, because I think that oftentimes there is a confusion that doulas are now going to fill in as a medical provider or a replacement, and we do not replace the medical provider, whether that be the doctor, OB-GYN, or the midwife. That is still someone who generally would be present. So a midwife would be someone who actually is trained clinically to be able to deal with the medical side of things. So if there is a need for, medication or some sort of interventions, they would be trained and skilled to be able to do that. Our training makes it very clear that we are non-medical providers. We are not diagnosing people. We do not take the place of the medical provider. We are a complement and support to it. And so that's something that's really important, especially on Guam, because there are so few medical providers, and many people are reporting that they're seeing a provider very late in their pregnancy for a lot of different reasons. And so the doulas are able to at least act as that either advocate to get them to be seen sooner, or to at least provide that education so that they know, hey, you need to go see your doctor if you can get in, obviously, and why that is so important, especially that early first trimester. We know that a lot of negative health experiences and outcomes happen based off your prenatal care. And so as doulas, we're really able to help to make sure that they still go see their midwife or their OB-GYN or whatever it may be. And so that's really the difference, is that a midwife would be able ideally to do the life-saving things if it needs to, or the medical things if it turns into or moves beyond the natural process of birth.
And from what you're telling me, that they're going through an extensive training, to be able to recognize all those signs, even spot some prenatal depression signs, and, being present for that mother, it requires quite a lot of work, quite a lot of education.
It does. So our training is about 3 to 4 days live, so in person, and we have different collaborations and guest facilitators. So we have registered nurses and physicians and massage therapists and all sorts of people who come to present and talk about different topics. And then we also have an additional 6 months online platform that our doulas have access to. And so that's where they hear from, acupuncturists and all sorts of different providers and community members, because we think it's really important that they hear from all of these different professions that are really related to perinatal health, and hear kind of all the different approaches, right? I think a lot of times people see doulas as this competitive relation to medical providers or adversarial. And for us, we want to work in partnership and collaboration, because we all need to work to better the health outcomes, right?
Oh, I'm so glad for your services. I mean, I wouldn't even see it as a competition.
Yeah.
There's so much work, that it is involved in raising a healthy child, and having a healthy mother that can support that pregnancy. I want you to kind of lead us step by step. For example, when does the doula services start? Does it start before the conceiving? Does it start after the conceiving, few months before delivery? How does it work?
Yeah, so there are all kinds of different doulas, including fertility doulas. So if someone is struggling with infertility, or, maybe they have something like PCOS or endometriosis, there might be a doula who helps them through that process.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then we also have doulas who, they have their own religious backgrounds. And so maybe they are supporting through that process of counseling in that, conception or whatever it may be. And then there's also doulas who are birth doulas. And in that process, we encourage people to hire doulas early on or to get a doula early on. But we have some of our clients who they reach out while they're in labor, because maybe they just found out about doulas and they didn't know that they existed before. So really at any point you can hire a doula. Ideally early on in pregnancy is the ideal situation, but then there's also postpartum doulas. And so sometimes maybe they didn't hear about a doula, or maybe they didn't want the support while they were giving birth, but they did postpartum. Because one of the things that people don't understand or often miss is that everyone plans for birth. You hear about birth plans and all of these things. Most people don't plan for postpartum, and postpartum is the longest period. Birth is such a short amount of time. It's an important part, obviously. People remember it. But postpartum is something that we're seeing a lot of people fall through the cracks in terms of support. And so we have postpartum doulas. But basically what this looks like, if you are supporting during the pregnancy period, the birth, and the postpartum, is someone hires a doula or decides to work with a doula. And then the doula tends to see them about 1 to 3 times. And those are like one-on-one prenatal visits. That's not including going with them to their own, appointments with their OB-GYN or their provider. That doesn't include like the text messages and the calls and the resources that the doula might provide. Because that's one of the really beautiful things, is that doulas are really creating this one-on-one, very unique experience for that particular individual. Because all of our experiences are very, very different, right? Even from one child to the next, it might be a whole different experience. And so the doula is really building that trust, building that relationship. And a lot of people, they'll like go looking down Google or the web or on social media about like, oh, is this normal? Like, I'm having spotting. Is this okay? Do I need to go to the hospital? And you get ridiculous information. And it makes you stress. It makes people anxious. And so being able to talk to someone who has this training, but also this network of providers and other skilled people that might be like, oh, here's some information or resources that you can provide to them, is such a great like tool to have. And then they're on call for the birth. And so birth can happen at any time, right? Unless it's a planned cesarean or induction or something of that nature. And the doula will be with them during that time, if they want them to, obviously. And so, whether the birth or labor takes a couple of hours or days, a doula will be there to support them through that process.
This is so amazing.
Yeah.
I know that the spouse usually would be there and would provide, but like having a woman that can understand what you're going through and like being like with you walking step by step, it feels like you're than a mom, like being, able to attend the birthing process. This is amazing. Like as you were saying, I was like, how come me as a medical provider, I didn't know that sooner. I do take care of pregnant patients, and once they deliver, then we see them for their postpartum visit. And after that, what happens between that postpartum visit and their primary care doctor? Sometimes it passes like years.
Yes.
And mothers don't go to the doctors because they're like, I'm fine, the child is fine, the child is eating, the child is growing. But there's so many more things, to keep both healthy, that need to take place, that as you said, many things are falling through the cracks. And, I feel so responsible for not knowing about your services. And for that reason, we're doing these radio shows. So the island might be aware that there are doula services. You don't have to go through that step alone. You can have somebody that will guide you, support you, care for you. It's like in the old-fashioned way.
Yes.
It's like in the old Chuquis way and the
Yes.
Chamorro way of preparing you for that big day
Yeah.
and also sustaining you after.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to note because some people are worried, or their families or their partners, if they have one, might be worried that we're a replacement, that we'll replace, the partner or the mom or the grandma or whoever, and we're not. We're a complement to them. We're there to support them as well because, the mom during labor, for instance, they have all the hormones that are going to keep them, going through the motions, but if the husband or whoever is there for days, they're going to get tired because they're not having those same things. So the doula can help to, to be tagged in and to support. And if there are certain things, movement wise or advocacy wise, the doula can help whoever it is that is in that room or helping them labor to know from an education point, like, here's what we can do, which is really beautiful. And then for people who don't have that support or are single moms or whatever it may be, it's being able to have someone in your corner that is uniquely for you and that you have gotten to know and build that trust with, that can be really, really empowering and really change the experience that people are having. Because, many of the people that we talk to in our village educationals or just in general, they talk about the trauma in relationship to birth and pregnancy and postpartum. And it's like, how can we as a community change that story?
Thank you, Stevie. Thank you, Elena. And thank you, Gilayna. We're going to go to a quick break. If you have a question, go ahead and call it in. You can call us at 671-686-9999. That's 671-686-9999. Call in your question or send us a text via WhatsApp. Don't go anywhere. Total Health Live will be right back after this.
I text myself a question.
When plotting a ship's course, you have to take into account the effect of the wind. A good navigator knows to shift the course depending on the strength of the wind across the beam. Each year, the Lord leads our course, but sometimes the wind comes on strong, like broken equipment or higher than expected tower payments. But we'll often receive an unexpected gift from a friend, and that refreshes us like a beautiful breeze. If you can send that type of gift this month, it'll be very appreciated. From Joy FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Total Health on Joy FM. Call in with your health-related questions to 472-1111 in Guam. If you live in the Sinamai, we want to hear from you too. Call 323-1113 or text or WhatsApp us at 686-9999. And now, here's more Total Health.
Hi, and welcome back to Total Health Live. In studio today, we have Elena Taneva, nurse practitioner. We also have Stevie Merino, the Executive Director of Birth Workers of Color Collective, and Gilayna Joy Santos, the Program Coordinator here on Guam. And I've been sitting here, I've been listening, and I realized that doula services are so valuable. They really network with the medical team, the medical providers. They also collaborate with the families. And I was thinking about it as an islander, right? Because as an islander, I've had friends who have been in the States and they were without their extended family, and then they got pregnant and they said, okay, I need to be close to my family, right? So they've actually gotten up and moved from one state to another in order to be close to that support system. But what if you don't have that option? Like, doulas are so valuable in this sense, and in many other cases as well. I think it's just that we're not aware of it because so many of us don't know about it yet.
And now as I'm becoming myself aware, I'm like, who wouldn't like to have a doula, during that process, like from the beginning to the end, and like even more, who wouldn't like to have this emotional and physical support? Like, I would like to hear a little bit more about it, but I'm very curious, Stevie. Here on the island, we have a lot of dynamics happening during pregnancy. I have I have patients that, for example, they're like, hey, I'm a working mom. I can't really afford to stay at home with a baby. So I'm sending my baby to YAP, for example, because the whole family is waiting for to raise the baby. And I am seeing you're nodding your head because you agree with me that the whole family actually invests in taking care of the baby. Can you tell us if there are any anthropological or historical differences in, being a doula in the Micronesian population, Chamorro and, Chuukis, Yapis, Koshra and Palauan, or like the general population? Maybe you can make a difference since you're working also in California.
Yeah, so there is a lot of traditional knowledge that we've been so blessed and honored to be able to receive from different elders in the community who remember those stories, their moms or even themselves who maybe were basically in the role of a doula or some sort of birth or pregnancy supporter. They seen it and they witnessed it. We've talked to Zoamtis or Surahanas here who maybe remember some of those stories as well. And some of the anthropological just like research and data really shows again that this was so common on all of our islands. We are very collective community people. And so this idea of birthing on your own and, in this isolated setting is very, very new, really probably in the last 100 years, if even that, right? But it's become this norm. I remember when I was asking my family, oh, what are our birth traditions? And they were like, oh, to birth in a hospital. That's not a tradition. That's just something that we do now, right? And also it was kind of sad that is what people remember. Mm-hmm. And, there's some grief in that. And I think one of the beautiful things that we really love about doing this training and specifically doing it on Guam and supporting our doulas in the outer islands and other islands as well is that so many people are getting to reclaim and reconnect to their traditional practices and to remember them. Whether it's been passed down through their families or not, I think that it is really our birthright to be able to know and to understand our traditional practices. And so there's not a lot of differences. I think the most modern thing is Western medicine and the integration of that and really, making sure that we're working with providers and things of that nature. And the advocacy that goes along with that. But so many of our islands have very similar practices. And so that is, something that is really beautiful, that the support is not a new thing. It's just the term that is new for people. And some people, because, it's not something that is normalized in all of our communities, or again, we've lost it as a result of migration or whatever it may be, that reconnection to it and reclaiming of it. Some of our doulas from various different identities and cultures, when they have supported clients, they have expressed oh my gosh, this was such a positive experience and it was unlike anything I thought it was going to be. And then they tell their church congregation or their family members, and those elders start telling their stories of remembering. Wow. And so now more of us are learning those traditions and those practices. But really, again, it's not very different than what doulas do. It's just the places and spaces that we do them now. And, as I mentioned, so many of the doulas wear different hats. For me, I am someone who practices a lot of cultural traditions. And so I bring that into my doula work. And, that is something that we had this past Sunday, a grief and loss workshop. And we were able to really do body work and herbal work around grief and loss from a traditional Chamorro perspective. And it was very beautiful and very new to a lot of people, including some elders. And so, really trying to create that space of how do we holistically look at health and wellness and traditions, and doulas tend to be able to introduce that. And then I have some people who are I don't want any of that. I just want to go to the hospital and get the epidural and all those things. And we're great, we can provide you the education to know what your options are and make sure that you're treated with the most respect and have the most beautiful cesarean or epidural or whatever it may be experience. And so I think that's really important for us to name as well, because many people think like, oh, it's a doula. You know, they only believe in birthing in the ocean with the whales and, you know, the rainbows. And it's like, no, man, that would be a beautiful experience, but that's not what birth support is looking like, because that's not how people are giving birth. And so we're meeting people where they're at, and also like really connecting it to the ways that we traditionally have done things with the modern twist of here's what's available to us and what people know now.
This is so beautiful, like connecting back to the roots, you know, to the culture and traditions. When I was visiting Palau and also in Yap, you know, many women, after they deliver, they have those ceremonial days in which they kind of have to be soaked, would I say that?
The oil,
in, you know,
yes.
In the oils, ginger, and I don't know what other plants, to make sure that the mom is healthy and the baby is healthy. Do we have something like that when it comes to the Chamorro tradition?
Yeah, so, you know, a lot of Zoantis, they do see postpartum women, pregnant women. They might do massage or, you know, give medicine, herbal medicine, or different things of that nature. They all have different like expertise and skills. And so people might, if they know, right, because that's the other piece, if people know and they're able to access, they might go to get those things. And then there are some of our doulas who also have some of that knowledge as well. So if they're providing services, they might offer that, or their clients might request it. And so, yeah, there's a lot of things that unfortunately the majority of people don't necessarily know how to access or what those things are. And then I think the other piece is that sometimes the people in their lives aren't supportive of them accessing those things. You know, I know my family, when I was breastfeeding my son, for them, it was an association of something that we did because we were poor or because we didn't have another option. And formula was so like revered, and for me it was like, this is a traditional practice. This is something that is within our ability from our bodies to be able to do. Obviously there's work and all kinds of other things that now have impacted it, and the lack of education and support. But, you know, I think that family kind of shame and like information, misinformation sometimes can impact some of the traditional practices as well. And so, you know, sometimes I think we look to like the ceremonies and the plant medicine and all these things when something like birthing in particular ways, or breastfeeding, or the way that we name our babies or whatever it might be, are also traditional practices as well. You know, so we never want to romanticize things, because I think that we also know that traditions aren't static. They evolve as we do as well. And the one thing about like Indigenous and Pacific Islander people is that we are so able to adapt to the times, to the weather, to all sorts of things. And that's what really makes us such a thriving community and population, because our traditions and our knowledge is not static. You know, we're able to make traditional whatever it is that we need to. And I think that that's a really beautiful cultural way of us adapting and surviving, and also hopefully in the future really thriving as well.
This is so amazing. Like, you kind of are offering tailor-made services for every particular family, every particular mom. I'm sure you take into consideration their religious background as well.
Yes.
And you're just trying to be there, really supporting in any way that they may have this beautiful experience. And we know that most of the times birthing is a beautiful experience. It's one of the most powerful things you can witness. Every time I've witnessed as a medical professional, birth taking place, it's very, very, very hard. We know how hard it is. But then once you hear the baby crying, it's like the most beautiful thing you can literally witness on this planet. And it is amazing, like everything, like all the thought going behind, you know, to be able to support the whole family. I know doula, from research, has been shown that really help with, fewer complications with birth, less cesarean birth, what is it? Less complications, less fetal, extractions, less neonatal intensive care unit, services if needed. The positive psychological benefits are very satisfying in general. And I wouldn't think that anybody would kind of opt out
Yes.
of the doula services, but of course that's a personal choice. It is amazing. And we weren't aware that we have those services in Guam. So please tell us more. Where can we find you? Where listeners can find you? Where medical professionals can be trained on that, and how we can support your services?
Yes. So, Gilayna is our Guam coordinator. So here on island, she would be the person to reach out to, and also other islands as well. We have had a lot of meetings today, actually, talking about how we can offer more support and training to the other islands from a cultural perspective, bringing in some of our doulas and the people that are there and the people in the communities here on Guam to be able to support with that training, and really, bringing in however we can support, right? Those efforts, if there is an interest to obviously bring them to island, because we always wait for that invitation. But they can email us at guam@birthworkersofcolor.com. They can also look at our website, birthworkersofcolor.com, or on social media. You can also find us. We do village educationals. And so those are another way for the community to be able to actually come out in person and get some information for free. And also to, share with their community members. Maybe they're not pregnant, or they're, not planning to be, but someone in their family or at work or their friends or their community members might be. So being able to pass this information along. I think you are all not the only ones who don't know that doulas exist. We've only been doing this work on island for the last 3 years, though there have been some doulas in the past that have been on island. I think for us, the representation and visibility and letting more people know is very important, because people can only utilize what they know, right? And so it's really our job, and we're hoping that all of you and people listening are able to really share it, because that's how our community that's traditional knowledge, is the oral traditionalism of passing and sharing that information.
Thank you, Stevie, and thank you, Elena. Don't go anywhere. Total Health Live will be right back after this short break.
Life 101. The basic rules for getting by and moving ahead in life.
Peace of mind is something that everyone wants, but it's harder to come by than ever these days. If you don't have peace of mind, there's no mystery to it. Here are some of the saboteurs at the top of the list. Financial stress can ruin peace of mind. It means we're spending more than we have coming in, or we are borrowing to buy instead of saving to buy things. Tweak your philosophy. Buy from your savings instead of on credit. You'll be amazed at the sweet peace of mind and less stress you'll have. Number 2, procrastination is a big peace of mind killer. Whether it's work, school, chores, or taking on a big project, procrastination simply robs us of peace of mind. Another area is struggles with personal relationships. If you are trying to fix other people in your life, you'll feel defeated. So make sure that each day you're bettering yourself to help those around you. Amazingly, you'll notice a change in your attitude toward them, and they will actually start acting differently toward you. Jesus said, "My peace I give to you." So it's there. We just need to discipline ourselves to keep that peace in our lives.
From Joy FM.
And we're back with more Total Health. Give us a call with your medical questions. Number to call in Guam is 472-1111. If you're in the CNMI, the number to call is 323-1113. Or you can text or WhatsApp us at 686-9999. Now back to the program.
Hi, and welcome back to Total Health Live. We don't have much time left, so we'll get right back into it.
Yes, I still have so many questions for Stevie and Gilayna. So, we want to know, for example, many of our marginalized population, females, that they would like to have doula services, but they probably cannot afford it. Can they still contact you? Is there any remediate options for them?
Yes, definitely. As an organization, we've really been doing a lot of advocacy to make sure that, again, doulas are compensated. I think a lot of times when something is seen as women's labor or feminized labor, we're often not compensated. Or, if something is from our hearts or passion, we think we have to volunteer and do it for free. And for us, this is something that is not just a fun job. I mean, it is fun sometimes, or most of the time, but it is also something, it's very hard work. And, there's a physical, but also emotional and mental toll because there's so much, complications and disparities that are happening on island, but also all over. And so for us as an organization, we've built up the capacity when there are people who maybe can't afford doula services but want one, that we're able to actually compensate our doulas for them. And we've also been doing a lot of advocacy, as I mentioned, with Guam Gov Insurance and also Medicaid so that doulas can be reimbursed.
Oh, wow.
Because that's popping up in the states. I believe there's about 24 states now, or maybe a little bit more as of today, that are offering and reimbursing doula services through insurance. And so we're hoping that Guam follows that trend and really becomes a pioneer in these efforts, especially with the islands. And so those are some ways, but through our organization is another way. We've also been working closely with the public health department. And so really trying to approach this from as many different avenues as possible, because we know that, and data shows that doulas are so beneficial. We're a non-medical, really support to the overwhelming disparities. And to just, even without the disparities, I think there's so much research that shows that doulas help to increase the positive experience. And so we want more people to have positive stories around their birth and around their pregnancy and their postpartum. So there's definitely a lot of ways if people are on the fence or they want to meet with someone, if maybe they need particular language that is able to really translate some of this stuff or help them to have that one-on-one conversation. For us as an organization, when they reach out to Gilayna and are like, oh, I want services, we ask them what they're looking for and what are some needs, what do they see as an ideal doula, and we try to match them with that, because it's very important. And we know through research that a lot of people, when their support reflects them, it can actually increase their positive health experience. And so, for us, that is so important, and really being able to make sure that this is accessible. For a lot of our communities, they think like, oh, that's just for people who have money or who have resources or who are going to birth in certain ways. And for us, it's that reclamation of traditional practices. That support is something that we all deserve. And how can we make sure that as an organization and just an advocacy group who is really making sure that doulas are accessible and that health outcomes become more positive, that people can receive that care?
The very fact that you are called birth workers of color, that shows that you're really there for the vulnerable population. You're not only for those that can afford it. You're there for every single woman that is about to give birth in Guam. And this is so, that brings so much respect for your services, for everything you're doing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. One of the things for us is that we serve all types of people. We do not turn people away, and that's really important to name as well. I think a lot of people think like, oh, we only support Chamorro women or Chuukese women or, women from wherever. And for us, we want everyone to have better experiences and outcomes. But we also know that we have to uplift and center the most marginalized. And that's really one of our efforts, is that when the most marginalized have better experiences, everyone is going to benefit from that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when birthing goes well, it's just so beautiful. But when things don't go right, it is a very painful experience.
It is, yes.
And I'm so glad that your team is trained to provide even help in those moments, because let's face it, this is a very painful experience for the whole family, and not knowing what to do is like, it brings a lot of fear and anxiety in the family. But having somebody that can walk through those difficult moments, it's very comforting. Yeah. And of course, we want the best experience for all our women on the island. I just use those last minutes to make an appeal to our young mothers, that process of giving a birth starts when the moment you are in your reproductive health, in your time to be a mom. And it is very important to take care of yourself. We can't really rely on the doula for our health and for everything else. It's very important that you're taking care of yourself, you're taking vitamins, or you're eating very nutritious foods, you're exercising. And I advise my mothers, please become a mom when you're the healthiest, not when your health is really, really struggling. But even if that's the case, that's why this is where we are. We want everybody to live to the utmost of, of their goal in this life, of what God has created them to be, and to have that support. And meanwhile, while we are trying to really maintain their health the best, I'm so glad there are services that will support them emotionally, mentally, environmentally, occupationally, if you want to say that, physically, socially at the same time. And from today, I would recommend to every single mom that I know, every single person that's pregnant, or every family, to really benefit from your services.
Yes, thank you. We really hope that people, have learned something about doulas and really share the message around what doulas do, so that it does become more normalized in our communities and people believe that it is something that they have the right to and that they're able to access, and that it'll actually come. We do the training, but we listen to our doulas and the communities that they come from. And I think that that's one of the most important things, because a lot of trainings and organizations don't do that. And, I think if there's a need or a want or something that people are like, there's a gap in this area. Like even when we talk about nutrition, it's often in a non-cultural way. And, I think that being able to fill in those gaps and connect the cultural piece is so, so important.
Yes, absolutely. Like what you're doing is actually taking a holistic approach to like all aspects of giving a birth. And I believe every family becomes a better family after this experience, because you're not only helping the mom, you're also helping the extended family, from what I'm understanding.
Yes.
And then also teaching some breastfeeding skills. Many young mom, very young, 14, 15, 16 years of age, they don't know. They're still, quite young for themselves to take care of themselves, much more to take care of others. But you're right there with them, guiding them, walking with them step by step. This is incredible. And this is exactly what our island needs.
Yeah, and if people are interested in becoming doulas, that's another option. We are doing more trainings on island, and we definitely need more people who are able to spread this work and do it, because once more people learn about it, there's going to be a high demand, right? And so if people are interested, or, they're looking for new career options, this is something that is really accessible, and we really equip people. There's no prerequisites. And so we're really training people who are wearing all sorts of different hats. And I think that that's really important, that the doulas are coming from the communities that they serve.
And I know that many of those extended families, they might have somebody in the family, maybe they can't afford those services, but somebody that would like to be trained a little bit how to support the family. And that's so amazing that you're offering those training services, those workshops that are available like all year round, right?
Yes.
I have no words to describe the joy that I have knowing that gap somehow is filled in, because I do see a lot of discrepancies. I do see a lot of sad stories, and I don't want that to be the reality for Guam. Yes, of course, we have limited resources, but we have a little bit more resources than many of the Micronesian islands have, correct? And why not making it a beautiful experience? Why not leading actually in great birth practices in Guam and spreading it throughout Micronesia? Giving a birth does not need to be always traumatic.
Yes.
It does not need to be dramatic. It can be such a rewarding experience, and that will really set the tone for the baby and for the family through many generations.
Yes, one of the things that we always say is that our lifetime health starts at our mother's pregnancy. And so, when I go to families' homes and there's multiple children and I'm supporting the mom, that's what they're witnessing as the norm. And so we're already changing generational, opportunities and just like what they're seeing. and the care and the support that they deserve, and that they know when they're older, they also deserve and they expect, right? And so, like, how do we just make this what is routine and such a part of, like, the integrated experience of pregnancy and birth here on island and beyond?
That's amazing. Well, we do have good services in Guam. We do have several clinics. I believe we should all implement the doula services. Every person that is pregnant in Guam should be aware of that. And we can make a point, and hopefully you can train us also as medical professionals, that we can spread the word and make a birthing experience in Guam even more meaningful than before, bringing the religious, bringing the cultural concept as well, and the traditions. In most of the countries and cultures, birthing is a wonderful experience. I have only witnessed in high in the mountains in Costa Rica, for example, a mom should deliver by herself. And they're considered unclean. And so mothers are tough. They need to be able to deliver the baby. They need to be able to cut the umbilical cord by themselves. And I had to do a lot of training, to kind of try to change this mindset over there. I'm glad we don't have this mindset here, and that the whole family, extended families, are there present with the families. But what about those that are really single? They really have no support whatsoever.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's where doulas can really help to fill that gap, right? And also with some of the people who do have large families or support people, they might not be the most supportive. And so that is one of the other pieces that I think is really important. But doulas are able to be there as the support, and also to, provide networks and connections to other services that they might need as well.
Choose doula services. That's really the right way to go for healthier island, for healthier babies and healthier mothers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elena. Thank you, Stevie. And thank you, Gilayna, for coming in today and really telling us about the doula services that are available to us. Thank you also to all our listeners. Total Health Live is here on Wednesdays from 5 to 6 p.m.
Be sure to check with your doctors before making any sudden life changes discussed today. Total Health is brought to you in partnership with Guam Seventh-day Adventist Clinic, where health is their mission. We look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Thank you and si Juas Masi for listening to Total Health right here on Joy FM.
You are listening to KSDA 91.9 FM, Agate and Agana Heights, Guam, and simulcast